let's tackle the add lived at. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the add person because it's got more fields here. Less editing for me to do. And I'm going to use this one as the add lived at. So if I choose file, save as, add lived at, notice that I'm just using some, they're not random file names, they're descriptive file names. I'm going to add to the database and I'm giving what table I'm adding to. It always helps if you are pretty logical with your programming. So I'm going to save that. Now I do have a little bit of a problem with this one, which I'm going to try to explain. So I'm going to go to the lived at structure, and the first thing I'm going to do, because there's a lot of fields in here and I have a tendency to forget them when I'm programming, I'm just going to put the fields in here as a comment just to remind me what I've got. I've got lived at ID, and I've got person ID, and I've got a location ID, a date from, a date to, and an event ID. Okay, that's going to stop me bouncing backwards and forwards between the database to find out what I've got. I already know that everything here is going to be an integer. I already know that because the date from and the date to I set as integers, and everything else is an integer because it's part of well, it's a foreign key to a key field, which is an integer in another table. So that's pretty straightforward to deal with. Now, what is important is that person ID, location ID must be present. I cannot try to enter data into the database without that ID being present, person and location and event ID. They must be present. Not only that, they're going to be numbers. They're not going to be names or anything else. So I'm not going to have person, Fred Blogs, location, Glastonbury, and an event birth. I'm going to have data which is going to look like this. So lived at ID, that is going to be a null value that we're going to paste in. We're going to let the computer decide that. The person ID might be person number 1, who's at location 2, date from 1960 to 2016, and the event ID might be a number 2, a birth or a death. So that's what my data is going to look like when I put it in. It's pretty meaningless, but if I don't send it like that, it's going to be rejected. So that's the major difference between what I'm going to be sending in and from my form that is different from the last set of files. Now, it would be really ridiculous if on my form I had to keep putting a number in, number 1. I'd have to keep looking up who that person was to find out what his ID number was, or her ID number. But that is exactly what I am going to do. I'm going to have another file which is going to do a lookup. It's going to do a query on the person table to pull back all the people so I can grab the ID from the person that I want and then populate the form. It might sound a bit odd at the moment. What I'm trying to say is that the file that we're doing now is not going to be a sort of end result. We're going to have to do a bit more work to the actual form or the HTML form page before we can actually do this sensibly, and we'll probably do that through JavaScript and maybe Ajax, or possibly even a jQuery. So there's quite a bit of work to do just to populate this table. So I'm just going to treat it very simply at the moment. Just like the rest of them, I'm just going to put something in the database and I'm just going to choose numbers, so you'll have to follow what I do. So the first thing I need to do is check that I have a person ID set. Now this might be sort of a redundant code, because I would have probably done this beforehand. In other words, I won't be allowed to post to the database until I've picked up a person. So this may well be redundant code, but I'm still going to put it in so that you can get a feel for it all. So location ID and event ID. So I'm going to manage my IDs first. Let's copy this because I need to do the date from and the date to. And really, these two shouldn't be empty either. I shouldn't allow, in reality, these two fields, date from and date to be empty. But for this version, I'm going to. So, date from, and running out of real estate. Date to. Also, I'm not going to split my lines. I'm not going to put this on another line. I'm just going to keep it on one line, and I'll move the screen around rather than having things on different lines. I like to keep it straightforward like that, so you can see a statement on a particular line. So now I'm checking all of these, whether I've got a person ID, a location ID, event ID, a date from, and a date to, whether they're all set. All of them should be set. Now, hopefully I've not made any blunders with the, it looks okay, blunders with the brackets and the parentheses. It seems fine. I'll soon find out though. And again, I've got to check whether they're empty. Now, if any of them are empty, we've got a problem. So again, we're going to be doing the whole bunch. Person ID, location ID, let's copy that. And again, and again. So location ID, event ID, and date from, and date to. So I'm checking every single field that is going into that central link table. And normally this is the way. Generally every single field will be full. So, done that. Now I need to pick up that information. So, person ID, there's person ID. Location ID. Sorry if you're getting bored with this. At least we're covering it. I'll just copy both of those. Can edit them, do that again, and delete the last one. So this one's going to be event ID, date from, date to, make sure these match. So that was the event. Date from, date to. So what I'm basically saying is that if I haven't supplied any one of these fields, it's not going to work. So I don't need to check this empty because there's nothing I'm allowing through to either have or not have a value. Now I'm going to lived at, so I choose the correct table, and this is going to be, well, let's keep person ID because I need that, so it's going to be lived at ID, person ID, location ID. The order of the fields doesn't really matter, but it does help if you use a logical method. Spot errors quicker. Event ID, date from, and date to. So we don't need to put a value for the lived at ID. We're not playing with that, so that's going to remain at null. This first name is going to change now to be person ID. We're going to have event ID, location ID, sorry. Location ID, and event ID. So I've just got to do my date to and date from in the same form. Now editing this is going to be a bit of a nightmare, so let's check. I should have a comma there with a single quote and a double quote, and then the variable, close it with a single quote, a comma, a single quote, open the variable. You see why this is fraught with danger. Hopefully that's it. Nope, I need another single quote there. That should be the job. So all I need to do is put the variable in here. That's date from. The next one is going to be date to. Variable. Okay, so that's it. Rather a long line. Again, it's probably useful to sort of split it over two. I'm not really going to be bothered with that, as I've said. I'm just going to leave it on one line. So we're going to run the query. Now, this is going to be the next one, which is going to be a pain. So we're going to be checking all of this, if empty. So I'm going to take all of that, the whole line, control copy, and I'm going to paste that down here, and I'm just going to take the not empty signs out. So paste that into there, and I'm going to remove the exclamation mark or pling. That saved me a bit of typing, and hopefully it's correct. I'm going to say hopefully. It may well crash, who knows. Okay, so I now need to have yet another descriptive item to change my library. So what is this going to be? Oh, it's difficult trying to think of names. I'm just going to call it error. Okay, so I've made an error because nothing can be posted to the database if I haven't filled all the fields. So if I create another one of these now with error, and just put all fields are required, and a comma at the end. And I think having done that, I have now completed that item. So I need to write the form and then test the item out. So I'm going to save that. Save that. I'm going to stop the video and I'll come back when and complete the form.